Hey everyone, what up? Matt Kaiser here. Now with Stellar Blade just launching around this week, I thought it was high time to finally give my thoughts about the demo, as it was one of the games I was actually kinda interested in. Now, as stated before, this was a game that I was actually looking forward to, based on what I've seen from it, and the fact that this game takes heavy inspiration from games such as Nier Automata, which is actually a good thing because I really love Automata and whatnot. Though initially my expectations based on the gameplay, especially from early trailers, kinda made it look like something akin to like fast-paced heavy combo action games, similar to what Devil May Cry as well as Bayonetta did. Though the actual full-on gameplay made it look a little bit different. Anywho, this was being made by a studio in South Korea called Shift Up, which currently, at this point, has only made mobile games, and with them Sony publishing them and giving them tons of money to use to make it for the PS5, the question is, how was it? But before we begin, if you like what you're seeing here, then by all means, like the video, click the subscribe button if you're new, and hit that bell notification icon if you want more RPG content from yours truly. Not only that, but I'm currently in the works of making my whole 750 subscriber special of what many consider to be one of the best JRPGs in the modern era, which is Persona 5 Royal, and hopefully before this year ends, I'll be able to deliver that, so please do look forward to it. With that out of the way, it's time to see what this demo actually gave. So the demo offers you a story mode, which lets you play about an opening hour of the main story, and then once you beat it, you also get a boss challenge mode with some upgrades. Now first we gotta mention, of course, is how beautiful this game looks. For essentially a developer's first AAA game, it's absolutely mind-blowing. And no, I'm not talking about a certain aspect of this game.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now, as stated before, this game looks absolutely gorgeous. Everything from the locations, the environments, the character models, and even the cutscenes themselves just looks absolutely so beautiful and even runs so smooth. I played this on performance mode and was able to get a very smooth 60 FPS, and from what I can tell, I didn't notice any frame drops. Another thing that also slaps is the music, which, my god, it's such a banger, and really drives home that Nier influence, as well as even some other games like say Scarlet Nexus. And it's heavily evident in the former, especially when the fact that this game's soundtrack was being done by Monaka, which is a music studio that's being headed by the Nier composer himself, Kaichi Okabe. And while no, he didn't really do the music for this game, it's still nice that his team did that. Then we also have the level design, which followed more of say a sublinear approach, with some couple of alternative pathways to find things like new enemies, shortcuts and secrets, which was very nice and welcome. Though throughout the whole game it's said that this game will sort of be a little bit more open, which is nice to hear. That of course leaves up to now the combat and the story, which you can tell I saved those aspects for last. Now obviously the gameplay for this game is very far different than I was expected for it to be, as essentially what we saw from more footage. I think many share the same argument when watching each new trailer of this game, as this game is not meant to be say a character action game on the same level as say Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. Instead, it leans more to what a Souls game is, that's more based on parrying. You have your things like your traditional standard and heavy attack, as well as even having a shield gauge that can deplete if you take too much damage and can leave you vulnerable. And you also have a dodge that's also used to be able to perfect dodge any unblockable attacks. And of course a block that does reduce damage. Though really, it's parrying that's the name of the game, not only used to negate enemies from incoming attacks, but also be able to retaliate and counter against enemies. And if you are able to parry them perfectly to the point that enemies will actually become vulnerable enough to be dealt with a finishing blow, or in the cases of bosses, do incredible amounts of damage. And you also have things like better attacks, which are basically your special moves, and you also have a skill tree which can be used on things to increase like attack moves and survival. And you can also be able to spend new moves like reversal here or even reprisal, as well as even spend on training on how to use these moves. So yeah, generally speaking, that this game is pretty much different than what I expected. And this game is no joke, especially on the regular mode, where story mode is said to be even easier. And not gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest, initially that the combat felt a little bit sluggish for my liking, and somehow the inputs felt less responsive. And even though, don't hate me on this, I did play some Souls-likes in say Jedi Survivor, Strangers of Paradise, and heck, I'm currently even playing Wo Long, and we'll do a review on that when I beat it. And I'm having a blast with those games. Though, essentially, it was only until when I reached the boss challenge, which is a special mode which lets you fight against this boss, with Eve having a couple of her kit upgraded and more improved. I'll say right now that plays so much better than the story section, as it felt much more responsive, smoother, especially with the inputs, and the boss itself, while challenging, and I sure as hell died to him multiple times for sure, it honestly was a blast, and it just made me happy that the combat in general would actually get better later on, and it does make me sort of on board. But then we'd also leave to the story, and well, let's just say that while there is potential, I wouldn't say that I was entirely hooked with the intro, though I did really like Eve, as well as a whole guilt and sadness where her teammates do die so right off the bat. So thankfully she's not essentially a 2B clone, thank God, even though I do love her. But other than that, there's not really a whole much to go by, though I do hope later down the line that the story does improve, as stated that while I do like that this game is inspired by Nier Automata, I do hope that this game essentially stands out on its own and has something that will truly resonate me, especially with the trailers that do show actual potential for this game. So with that, how was the demo? Overall, I actually did enjoy it, as I think this is such a beautiful looking game with just some fantastic music on what we hear, and even some solid voice acting and character work, especially with Eve. And while initially I was a little bit iffy on the early combat, it was when you get to the boss challenge section where the combat was not only more upgraded, that actually got me a little bit more hopeful and made me sort of on board. Whether or not this story will deliver, that remains to be seen, though I was kinda glad that this game was actually far different than what I was expecting. Will I pick this up on day one? Sadly not, as I'm currently already occupied on playing other games I'm currently reviewing, but still, it's a game I can see worth buying anyway. And so that gives a thumbs up for me, so Kaiser approves. And for those who aren't particularly into Souls games, they might want to give this game a pass. But overall, it was so much fun. So let me know down in the comments if you guys play this game and what you guys think of it. Are you going to be picking up Stellar Blade, or are you going to give this game a pass? With that said, until then, have a good one, and Mad Kaiser out.